or many of you might not be familiar with our research group, the Pulp Platform Group. Let me start with a brief introduction. So we are a fairly large research group of around 100 people distributed in Zurich and Bologna. This is a photo of our last anniversary last summer. And we have a fairly large ecosystem of open source IPs ranging from RISC-V course. We were actually also one of the founding members of the RISC-V Foundation. Over peripherals, interconnects, and accelerators that help us build entire systems ranging from single core over multi-core to heterogeneous many-core platforms, from the IoT to the high performance sector. And all of this, or most of it, is accessible open source on GitHub. We are actually using these IPs also to tape out chips, and we are very proud to have taped out more than 60 chips in the last 11 years. And yeah, so now what is a hardware designer or a chip designer doing at the SEL4 Summit? And to answer that question, let us briefly look back in time. A few years ago, there were news about a new security vulnerability that affected most computers. It was called Spectre, and it's a combination of speculative execution and a timing channel. And many of you might be familiar with the timing channel. I also gave a presentation on this at the 2022 summit, but for those of you who are not, let me just give a very brief introduction. So let's consider a system where we have two applications that run concurrently on the same hardware, so they share the same hardware. And the supervisor, like SEL4, is supposed to isolate them. Now, if you look closer at the hardware, there is actually microarchitectural states that the applications share. And this can become an issue if we consider one application containing a Trojan that is trying to send some information to a spy. And the Trojan can do so by leaving a footprint in the microarchitectural state. And the spy, by measuring its own execution time, it can infer this footprint and the secret that was encoded by the Trojan. So in this example, here, by measuring a certain execution time, the spy would be able to infer that the secret was 4 in this example. And whenever we have such a horizontal variation, we say that we have a channel in our system, a timing channel. And to protect against this, there is only one fundamental solution, which is to partition all shared hardware resources. And by doing so, the execution of the spy will become independent of any execution that the Trojan did before, so it cannot infer anything anymore. And today I will try to talk a bit about partitioning in general. And so in particular, software now needs to know about all the hardware components to be able to partition them. And to make this a bit more easy, we would like to propose a few new abstractions that can basically that allows software to reason about the hardware and hardware designers to know what to implement. And so the proposal looks as follows. Let's say we have a hardware resource, and this hardware resource consists of multiple capacity units. So each capacity unit can be used in parallel independently, and software can allocate those capacity units to different security domains. So we call this spatial partitioning. Now, to reallocate one capacity unit from one domain to another domain, it would need to flush it before reallocating it to make sure that any state that was modified is no longer present. And this is temporal partitioning. And the number of available capacity units for a hardware resource is given by the hardware itself and the physical properties. And the allocation policy of these capacity units can be done by the operating system. Now, this is a bit abstract, but let me try to walk you through a few examples to explain this. So when we look at the very minimal system on chip, we can start by from the top, from the CPU. So this is CVA6, 64-bit application classic stage in our RISC-V core that was developed originally in our group and has now been transferred to the Open Hardware group. So it was formerly known as Ariane, as some of you might know. And it contains a lot of states, branch predictors, caches, but much more. And we could consider all of this state a single capacity unit inside the CPU that can be reallocated on a context switch. And I have talked about this 2 years ago at the RISC-V summit, so I will be quick about it, but we basically proposed an instruction to do this reallocation operation to clear the on-core states on a context switch. And we have integrated that instruction into SEL4 and used an empirical test bench running on top of SEL4 to demonstrate the efficacy. And we were able to close all observed timing channels and at a very low performance overhead and negligible hardware costs. To show that this actually also works in out-of-order cores, we have recently looked at the OpenC910 CPU, which was developed by T-Hat and Alibaba, and it has 12 stages. It's a superscalar out of order, so it's a much higher performance core, and we were able to do the same story with a few modifications and similar results. So this works across implementations and platforms. However, the issue doesn't stop here. If we look at the interconnects, we have the issue that cores compete for bandwidth inside the interconnect, and also the interconnects contain some states. And one simple solution for this is to co-schedule the CPU, so execute the same security domain at any given time on both CPUs. So then there is no contention anymore for bandwidth between security domains. And clearing the shared state of the interconnect on a context switch similar to the CPU. This is work in progress, so we will keep you updated on that. Now, capacity units become interesting in the case of last level caches, because here we can actually have a component, a last level cache, that comprises multiple capacity units, each one being a set of the cache. And so basically, each set can be allocated to one security domain. And whenever the CPU does an access, it's a memory request, it would add an identifier to that request that would help hardware identifying the cache sets that are allocated to that security domain. And again, to reallocate, we would need to be able to flush the specific cache sets that are allocated to, or that should be reallocated. Now, the cache controller also contains state that we need to take care of, and we can see the cache controller as a single capacity unit. And we have implemented a hardware prototype for this, and the integration and evaluation is still ongoing. And finally, main memory is also an open issue. So the row buffer in a DRAM chip acts like a cache, simplistically speaking, and we can partition it as well by pre-charging it on a context switch and clearing any state also from the memory controller that might leak. So far, so good. I have shown you a few results from our empirical test bench at the beginning to increase our confidence in the proposed solution. Sorry for that. We have also collaborated with Princeton University in creating a tool that formally demonstrates the absence of timing channels using system Verilog assertions. So those are bounded model checks. And as Courtney explained yesterday, a nice feature of those are that they actually also provide counterexamples if there are any. And those helped us to identify and fix 3 counterexamples in CVA6. And to show that this is not just some abstract work, I would like to briefly mention Carfield. So that's an automotive platform targeting mixed criticality systems that was developed in our group last year. And so it has a bunch of features for predictability, for real time, and for reliability. But it also has 2 fence.t cores that have the fence.t capability, so the time protection features that we developed. It has the partitionable last level cache that I presented before, and it has a constant time off-chip memory. And this chip was actually taped out last year in Intel 16, and we got the first samples back a few months ago in very nice looking Intel flip chip packaging. So this shows that this is actually feasible in real systems. So to conclude, closing timing channels is a problem of hardware-software co-design, and I'm very happy to be here at the group, and now also to stay a bit at the Trustworthy Systems group to be able to interact with the people designing the software and to collaborate with them. And we were able to close all on-code timing channels by exposing hardware partitioning mechanisms at very low performance overheads and negligible hardware costs. The solutions work, as we have shown, both using test benches, empirical test benches, using formal verification, and also in silicon. The DRAM and interconnect are still under investigation, so stay tuned for updates on those. And we are also collaborating with the RISC-V Foundation to specify these extensions and to actually make them part of mainstream systems. Yeah, so that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Sorry, before we take questions, I'll just get Rob to jump up and switch laptops.
Yep.
Thank you. Question?
Okay, you flip. Okay, flip it. Slide 15 when you had the taped out chip.
May I quickly?
Oh no.
No, okay.
I assume that was meant to say megahertz.
Yes.
Okay.
What did it say?
It said 600 hertz.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No,
it was megahertz. Yes.
No, that's megahertz, and actually on the tester we reached up to 1 gigahertz, 1.1 gigahertz. So, yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
All good. No. Just this. Thank you.
Thanks for the talk. I mean, like, as a hardware person, you definitely belong here. Like, we want more hardware people because we can't design safe systems if we don't have good hardware. So, like, please get more hardware people to come. And then my question is, like, so you fix timing channels, that's cool, but then, like, we're going to have another issue, and then we'll have to fix it again. And so, like, the only way to stop this is if the hardware gives us, like, proper communication, like, proper models of how the whole system chip works so that we can actually isolate stuff. So, do you know, like, if in your group there's people interested in formally specifying entire chips? And, like, is that something you're looking towards?
Yeah, so I think in our group specifically, there's not a lot of effort in that direction. So we have, as I presented before, we have had some exploration of formal tools that verify some of the properties that we want to give from the hardware perspective. Yeah, but I think this is still like more could be done in that direction for sure. Yeah.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
So there was a paper we wrote about 5 years ago which says we need a new hardware-software contract. That's the proper way to do it, right? We need an addition to the existing hardware-software contract, which is the ISA, to something that is a really minimal increment that gives us enough hooks to guarantee timing channel freedom. And Nils is actually active in the RISC-V task group on specifying that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was also the motivation a bit behind this talk, that we want a clear abstraction between the hardware and the software to be able to argue about the properties that software requires. Yeah.